do things intentionally, and Arim Miklat is people do it unintentionally. So how is it that the people kill? How is the fact that there's more murderers make it that there's more need for more Arim Miklat? Murderers have to do with the people. Murderers are not the people who stay in Arim Miklat. So we spoke about the different answers to the question. We said the Tosfot said that even though the Tosfot says because when there are more murderers, what happened is there were many people that might have killed without unintentionally, without witnesses, and did not go to Ori Miklat. What Hashem does is, for those people who killed intentionally without witnesses, He will have them come together, and the person who killed unintentionally will unintentionally kill again for a second time, and that will get rid of those murderers who killed the first time without witnesses. And therefore, in Gilad, Eva Yarden, where there's more murderers intentionally, so those intentional murders will also have more intentional murders that were not found with there was no witnesses. Therefore, those intentional murderers who had no witnesses are going to have to be killed by people who killed unintentionally. Hashem will make it that in these places there'll be more unintentional murderers in order to get rid of those intentional murderers that were not able to be killed by the court. So that's why, therefore, there's going to be more unintentional murderers, and we explained they'll come from other parts of Israel. They could even come from the other side of the Yarden. Where the 9 Shvatim are, you could have those people who killed unintentionally on the other side. Israel proper will do traveling, will do business, will come to the other side of Yarden, and they will be there and Hashem will put them together in order that they should kill unintentionally, but they might have killed unintentionally on their Israel proper, and they did not go to Golut, and now we're going to make sure that they're going to go to exile. Is that clear? That was the last thing that we said. I was thinking, we discussed the question, why in Gilad, why should there be more murderers on this side of the Jordan than the other side of the Jordan? So we started saying that when you're near the Beit HaMikdash, or the Mishkan, you're in a much holier place. There's less murderers. You're next to the Sanhedrin, the major Sanhedrin Hagadol, the greatest Sanhedrin of 71. It has a great influence. And when you're not living in that type of community, you're living somewhere else. You live on the other side of the Jordan. You're more further distant away. To get there, you would have to pass the Jordan. It's a tremendous trip. So that's why perhaps there was more murderers on this side. Eva Hayardei. That's one idea. Also, you could say the power of having so many Jews together, such a strong community, also helps. When you have 9 Shvatim on one side, it's a different type of community than having 2 Shvatim. And the power of having all those people together would help. I was thinking that the Gemara says, Begilad, that's what we landed off on 10th of the base, 9b. Amar Abaye Begilad Hirotzchim. In Gilad, there was the bottom of the page. In Gilad, there was very common, there was more murderers in Gilad, more intentional murderers than anywhere else, right? We also said to Rabbi Feinstein that because when there's more intentional murders, there's more unintentional murders, people take more chances. We spoke about that. But I want to say that God, the Pasuk says, "Begilad shtichirostim." In Gilad, there was more murderers. If you look at the Torah or Hashalim, where it brings the Psukim, it says about Gilad, it says, Ramot Begilad Lagadi. Which tribe in the Eva Yarden had more of the murderers? It doesn't say in all the 3 cities, in all the 3 areas where the 2.5 Shvatim were, that's where there was an increase in murder. It says specifically in Gilad. Gilad was under the which tribe out of the 2.5 tribes were in Gilad? So it says Gilad was Lagadi. With Ramot by Gilad Lagadi. The tribe of Gad was in Gilad. And it was the tribe of Gad that was in Gilad, and that's where there was more Rutzchim. There was more murderers. So I want to suggest what's the connection? That Gad should be the one to have more of the murderers. I wanted to say that Gad, Yaakov, good morning, Dr. Navid. Yaakov gave the bracha to God, good, Yudenu. What's the bracha of God? God will be the one, the strong troops. God will be the ones that will be the real fighters, the real of the Jewish community. They will be the ones that will be in the back to protect the Jewish community. They will be the ones. If you look at the language of the pasuk, I'm going to get it out. And I want to say perhaps maybe that could be the reason why there was they had the problem with the murders. What does that mean? When a person has a certain job or certain ability, certain expertise, it can be used for greatness and it can be used for the total opposite. So the fact that he was given the bracha from Yaakov, that you're going to be the real warriors, so to speak, you're going to be the real soldiers for the Jewish community, that means you have that's your job. But sometimes a person is gifted with great talent and they don't use it and they don't direct it from where it needs to be done. So that you see a person who's so powerful, but instead of using his power, his wit for great things, he uses it for the opposite. So maybe that was the problem. Why? Let's see. The pasuk says about God. Good morning.
Morning,
so
Rabbi.
good morning. So it says about God. I'm gonna get a. Hold on, I'm gonna get another format. Morning, Mike. They say like a person who's a redheaded person. A redheaded person, some people say, is more prone to have, like someone's redheaded, it's a sign of blood. And maybe it's suggested to be a shochet, to be a moel, to take that tendency to blood, and instead of using it or anger, instead of using it for anger or in a negative way, to divert that ability, that nature that you might have to a positive use. That's why David HaMelech, right? Known to, which was a man, he used it for war with Hashem. So perhaps that when it talks about God, it says, God will return safely on its heel by the same roads that passed, which had initially traveled. But there's other Chazal that talk about specifically that God was unique in its military abilities, and that was the blessing of God. And sometimes when a person has a certain blessing in military use, if they don't live up to that blessing to use it for mitzvah, so then maybe they might use it for the opposite. So maybe that's why we're trying to address why in God there was more murderers in the territory of God, which was Gilad. So we were saying that Yaakov gave each tribe, each shevet, a different bracha, right? Each bracha according to each person's abilities, nature, or what they've, like he talks about Zvulan, that Zvulan should be the one who is the guy going overseas to travel, to the sailors, to travel to make money, bring back the pearls. And Yisachar is going to be the one who's the Torah. He gave each one based on what they've accomplished. Yehuda, he saw in them and he gifted them with a bracha according to that. Yehuda, who was the leader, he gave like a lion, you'll be like a lion. So God, he gave that bracha of God about like God, the Sephorno says, that he's going to cut off, he's going to cut the horses and the chariots of the enemy. And people are going to run away from them. These are some of the brachat that he gave. And Evan Ezra says, God, he says, good Yugudenu. When the troops will go after God, he's going to go ahead and he's going to win them. At the end, he's going to defeat them. So that the God is the man who's the military, he's the warrior type. So that's perhaps, like the Kliyaka says, many troops will come on him in war. And he's going to knock them out. That's God. God is the real warrior, and what's going to happen. And that's perhaps when you have great nature of fighting, and to use it for good. So perhaps that's where they went wrong. When they went wrong was when they weren't on the level. Not always the Jewish community using their abilities, their kochot for greatness. Every Jew has kochot, and their job is to use it for good things. But there comes time in history that the people are not doing what they need to do. So if you don't do what you need to do, so then what's going to happen? You're going to use that nature that you have to do what's the opposite. So if your nature, if your abilities, your blessing was to be the best troops, the best guys, the best soldiers, so to speak, and then you go ahead and you're not following the words of Hashem the way you should, so then maybe you use that ability to be rotzchim. Instead of killing the enemy, you're killing your own Jewish people. So perhaps that was my thought of why specifically this Shevet in Gilad had the trouble of, and the Gemara brings the pasuk. Now we're on Yudam and Aleph. We're on 10a. The Gemara, what's the pasuk? They use that ability of being those troops, those soldiers, to knock out the enemy, to knock out their own Jewish people. So who were they killing? They were killing Jews. We don't need Ari Miklas for killing Gentiles. We need an Ari Miklas for people who killed Jews. And we said because there was an increase of intentional murderers in Gilad, therefore there was more unintentional murders as well. Tiksiv, we have a pasuk. The Gemara now brings a pasuk in Hosea. Gilad, Kiryat Ole Aven. Gilad is a city of people doing sin. So once the pasuk opens up, then in Gilad they're doing sin. What follows? The pasuk says, "Akuba bat midam." It's full. It has filled with those who are laying in ambush for blood to murder. So how did it happen that there's so many murderers waiting in ambush in Gilad? Because the pasuk opened up. What did the pasuk open up by saying? They were polei aven. They were sinners. So once they're sinners, it's exactly what we're saying. Once they're sinners and they're not in the right mindset with the right yirat shamayim that they're supposed to have, then they're going to take that nature that they have, which was supposed to be channeled to defend the Jewish community, physically, they're going to go ahead and kill each other. They're going to kill Jews. You see that? You see that, Mr. Safdie? See what the pasuk is saying? Because you got to ask the question: how did it happen? How did it happen that there's murderers in God? These are Jewish people. The answer is because the pasuk opens up by saying they were parley of them. They were doing sin. Once they're doing sin, that's why they could go ahead and lead to this level of murder. You think they were the only one doing sin? No. But why? But their sin led to murder because they had more of a nature to murder. But every nature could be used for great things. Instead of murdering other Jews, you could be the ones, the soldiers, the security for the Jewish community, and save them, protect them from the enemy. So that's the pasuk. And the Gemara says, "My akuba medam." What does it mean that they were akuba medam? So the Gemara says, "Omer Rabbi Elazar shehi okvim laharog nefashot." They were laying in ambush, hiding, waiting to kill people.
Rabbi?
So yes.
Rabbi, so how does this go with what Tosfot said? Because Tosfot said, if I recall correctly, that the people who killed, who were not, that had no witness, would die under the hands of someone unintentionally, correct? To get,
Right.
But the guy who is the killer unintentionally, who now has to live in these city of refuge, what's his issue? Why is he the chosen one? Because he's a sinner?
So again, the guy who killed intentionally will not live in a permanent way in a Urim Miklat. He would go there temporarily, and then they would take him out, judge him, and kill him. But,
correct. No, he would die because he would die unintentionally. He would die under the hands of someone who fell off the ladder and he was under it. So he would die. But the guy who makes the unintentional death and is going to end up, he didn't get it unintentional. Like he doesn't go to city of Miglad. Is that what you're saying?
No,
is that what Tosfos would say?
No. So Tosfos would say that all those people who killed intentionally, they will, and there was no witnesses, so God will make it happen that they're going to get killed unintentionally by somebody else. And the person that they were getting unintentionally killed by was someone who had a history that he also had killed. He had killed unintentionally. But when he killed unintentionally, there was no witnesses. And he didn't go to exile. And he needs to get to exile. So now we're going to get him to exile, that he, the one who killed unintentionally without witnesses, will now kill this guy unintentionally with witnesses, and he will have to go to exile. Remember.
So who are the people that the Gemara is now saying they're sitting as ambush?
These are the people. No, these are the intentional people from the tribe of from God. From God. These were the ones who, when they were sinning, it followed that they murdered. When they were sinning, they became murderers, and those are the people. Because of them, there's going to be more unintentional deaths in that part of the country, because these guys are going to have to be killed. And God's going to make it that all the people killed unintentionally from throughout the 12 Shvatim will find themselves in these towns of the Gadi, and they'll have these accidents. There'll be a lot of accidental, unintentional deaths in the town of Gad. There'll be Jewish people from throughout the world who were traveling, doing business in the tribe, in these areas of Gad, and they're going to kill unintentionally these people from God who had killed people intentionally, but there was no witnesses. That's what the Gemara is saying. Remember, God is behind everything, meaning a person, of course, have choice to do the right thing in life or not. God's not behind a person making the wrong decision. A person making the wrong decision, that was a person's wrong decision, and he's to blame, or she is to blame for their wrong decision. But once that wrong decision was made, now God is going to figure out how to even the score. Meaning nobody gets away with anything. And therefore, even if there wasn't any witnesses, God's going to make sure that the guy will be taken out. So that's what's going to happen. So
Rabbi, just on that subject, if the guy made a wrong decision, okay, but the fact that he committed to that sin of killing someone, okay, wasn't it predetermined already? You follow what I'm saying? Okay, he has a choice between kill or not kill. In this case, they killed, okay? But the fact that results are not in his hand.
It was not, no, God gives a person the ability. Finish
but it
what
was
you were
still
saying.
his choice. So I'm saying like he gets punished because of his choice. But the result that he killed someone, that was also probably predetermined by Hashem that, okay, you're going to kill someone. And because you're bad, this bad thing is going to come to your hand. But it was yours. You choose to kill this one. I think he's getting punished because of his choice. And the result of his choice was murder, which is the penalty for murder is this. Or my thinking process is wrong?
I hear what I think. I don't think it was predetermined that he needs to be the one to commit the murder. It was not predetermined that he has to commit the murder.
But isn't results in the hands of Hashem? If results are in the hands of Hashem.
That's true. But so the Rambam says God created the world in a way that he allows people. Now he gives people the right to blow themselves up and do terrible things. Now, of course, I would say that the victim, if God did not want the victim to die, the victim would not have died. So that obviously the victim, for whatever reason, God had reason why the victim should die. But that this guy should pull the trigger, that this guy should be the one to pull the trigger and kill this person, that was totally this person's choice. Anything that a person does, Hakol b'dei Shammai, and God, chutz mi'yirei Hashem, God gives the person the ability to do sin. God created the world in such a way that people have the ability to mechal Shabbat, Rachmana litzlan, to hurt people, to insult people, to fight with people. Husbands and wives have the ability not to act properly to each other. God gave people the ability to do that. God gave people the ability to act great with your wife and act great with your brothers, your sisters. God gave you the ability. It's in your hands. Any kol b'nei Shamayim, chutz mi'yirat Shamayim. If it's Yirat Shamayim, things that are religious aspects, that people wheel and deal with people act to people, they treat people, that's in your hands. Of course, God, if it wasn't meant to be, if the person should get hurt, God will not allow the person to be hurt. And if a person gets hurt from someone else, they need to understand that it was meant to be that I shouldn't be embarrassed. It wasn't meant to be that this guy should embarrass me. He's wrong for embarrassing me. If I got embarrassed, I should say it's a kapara. It was meant to be that I should be embarrassed, and if I wasn't deserving of being embarrassed, it wouldn't happen to me. So therefore, I should accept it. Kol ma'adav rachmana l'tav avid was for the best that I should get embarrassed. Okay. The Gemara continues. You're welcome. Umayshna, the Gemara said, it's a very interesting question there.
Rabbi, just a quick question.
Yes, Mike.
Rabbi, if the guy killed intentionally, shouldn't he be killed from someone who killed intentionally also? No?
The guy who killed intentionally, it's possible that you're right. It could be that if the guy killed intentionally, so God will have some. But the question is, why? You say, why did God make the accident happen to kill him? You're saying, why doesn't God have someone who, if a guy killed intentionally, this is your question, Mike. He killed intentionally.
So
right?
Intentionally, like they said here, they were hiding to get people, right?
Right.
So this guy is gonna run into the Ari Miklat, right?
Right. He's gonna run into Ari Miklat. He killed intentionally, but the Ari Miklat is not going to keep him there. The court is gonna, if there's witnesses, he would get killed. The guy who killed intentionally, if there's witnesses and he was warned, he would be killed by the court. Ari Miklat won't help him.
Well, yeah, but maybe the next guy, right, who will do the
See,
same,
next,
who will do the same sin, will get this guy. No, but but this guy you're saying is already will get judged.
right, but you're asking a question, Mike. The guy, you're asking a question. Why the
It's
guy who
about
killed without,
Tosfot, the Tosfot that we said. So, but you're saying that he will get killed unintentionally because he deserved the. Let's say he didn't get caught, he would get killed
right,
unintentionally. That guy.
right, and that, right, and the guy who will kill him unintentionally with witnesses, and he'll go to exile, the second guy, because the second guy also had a previous history that he killed someone unintentionally, but he didn't go to exile. So now God will make sure that now he'll kill this guy unintentionally, and he will
and go to exile.
go to exile. But you're asking, Mike, if a guy killed someone intentionally, why doesn't God have it that when a guy kills intentionally and a different guy kills intentionally, the person that he should kill intentionally should be this person that had killed previously intentionally without witnesses? I think that's what you were starting to ask. I think that you were asking. I don't know if that's what you were
No,
asking.
but I don't think that's what I was asking. But I just at the end it sounds like the results it's what counts, because if one did it intentionally and didn't get judged, then he'll get the punishment. But somebody else gonna get evened out by doing it unintentionally, and he's just gonna get the result of being killed. But somebody else is gonna get evened out on the unintentionally. This guy is gonna be taken care of, and now the next guy is gonna do it unintentionally because he also may be killed unintentionally.
Correct, exactly. So but
Uh huh.
everything will be evened out.
Uh huh. Okay,
Everybody
got
who
it.
had a past history, then the guy who killed intentionally needs to get killed, but there was no witnesses. He's going to get killed now. The guy who killed unintentionally and there was no witnesses that he killed unintentionally, now there'll be witnesses. He'll kill unintentionally and there'll be witnesses, and there'll be witnesses.
Wow.
Um,
Okay.
so
Thank
now the
you.
Gemara says, "Umayshna mehai gisa umahai gisa de mecharki." That if a person killed unintentionally from the sides of Eretz Israel, he's going to be further away. Let me speak out what the Gemara say. We said Eretz Israel was divided into three parts. We said it was divided. You divided the three Ori Miklat. You split it up in three different places in Eretz Israel. And the Gemara said that the three places were equidistant, we said, from each other. We had Hebron in Yehuda was the same amount of distance. And we said the Gemara says Hebron to Shechem was the same amount of distance, like from Shechem to Kadesh, and Shechem to Kadesh was like Kadesh to the north. And so the Gemara's question, look at the Rashi. Mahai Gisa the Mecharki. Hebron v'Kadesh rechokot b'gvulei haaretz shnei revi haaretz. Hebron and Kadesh, which are the two cities on the by from the border, away from the border, they are their girsa is revi to haaretz. They're a quarter of a way. So let's say you have if you want to have a person, you have the border, and then from the border to go to Hebron is a quarter of the country. Hebron to the next city of refuge is another quarter, and then from that city of refuge to the next city of refuge is another quarter. So we have Eretz Israel divided. It comes out each part is one quarter. You have three cities. If you divide the area of Eretz Israel if you divide three cities over Israel, so let's say, we'll give an example. Let's say if you have 100 miles and you're putting three cities over 100 miles. So what will it be? You'll have the first city will start from one side we're going to go 25 miles. We'll put the first city. From the border to the first city is 25 miles. From the first city to the second city is another 25 miles. That will take, that's 50 miles. From the second city to the third city is another 25 miles. That's 75 miles. So we have 3 cities. 25th mile, you had city 1. 50 mile, you had city 2. 75th mile, you had city 3. And then from the city 3, the 75th mile to the next border, to the next wall, so it comes out as equidistant from each border, the first border for the wall, from where the country starts, you have 25 miles to the first city. From the first city to the second city, 25 miles. From the third city to the next border, other side of the country is 25 miles. Is that clear? Does everybody have the picture clear? So we have, it's equidistant. Every 25 miles we have a city. We have 3 cities, and every 25 miles is a city. Now, if you think about it, you have a person, if a person killed from the border, we'll call it the wall, we'll call it the border, for the first 25 miles, anywhere he has the maximum he has to run is 25 miles. There's a possibility that if he killed by the border, the city that he's only going to reach can take 25 miles to reach that first city of refuge. That's on one border, one in the south. And the north side of the country, the same thing. If he killed on the other border, the opposite border, if he has 25 miles to run, the maximum that he has to run would be 25 miles. But the guy who killed between city number 1 and city number 2, if you think about it, for city number 2 and city number 3, how much does he have to run? So in between the 2 cities, good morning, Mr. Batesh, and welcome back. In between the 2 cities, if someone killed between city number 1 and city number 2 of refuge, if he killed within 12 and a half miles of city number 1, then he has only 12 and a half miles to run to city number 1. If a murder took place between city number 1 and city number 2, what's the furthest distance that he would have to run? 12 and a half miles. Because he has a city to his left, he has a city to the right. If you have 25 miles space between city number 1 and city number 2, we're doing a little math, Mr. Patesh, today. If we have 25 miles between city number 1 and city number 2, the maximum you have to run is 12 and a half miles. Is that correct? If a murder took place,
that means that the separation between city number 1 and city number 2 was 25 miles.
Exactly. The separation was 25 miles.
It was city number 1 and then 25 miles nothing, and then city number 2, the whole city, and then at the end of the city number 2, border of city number 2, 25 miles nothing, and city number 3. When I say nothing, it means no Ari Miklat.
Right. There was no Ari Miklat. There was at least there was no major Ari Miklat. The special cities of refuge was every 20. We said we gave an example. They divided the country. They put the 3 cities within equidistance of each other in the country. So we gave an example. If the country was 100 miles, every 25 miles there'll be a city. So let's say you'll put city number 1 after 25 miles, city number 2 in the next 25 miles, city number 3 the next 25 miles. So you have the 3 cities, and now each city is an equidistant from the border to the city number 1 is 25 miles, city number 1 to city number 2 is 25 miles, city number 3 to city number 2, city number 3 is 25 miles, and 25 miles from city number 3 to the border. So we have the 3 cities equidistant. But the Gemara's question is that if a guy killed by the border, he might have to run 25 miles. But if the guy killed between city number 1 and city number 2, or city number 2, city number 3, since he has a city on each side of him, he has an Ari Miklat between 1 and 2, he can either run to city number 1 or run to city number 2. So if he killed, let's say he killed 15 miles from between city number 1 and city number 2. So he only has 10 miles to run to city number 2. He doesn't have more than 12 and a half miles to run if he kills between cities. So the Gemara's question is, why did they divide it in such a way? They should have divided it. They should have divided each, let's say, each from the wall, from the border, they should have went 1/8. 1/8, put an Ari Miklat over there. And then let's say from that, go another 1/8, put another Ari Miklat, or however they should have divided in a way that it's going to be that the person, let's say if you do go 1/8, right? If you go ahead and you get, after 1/8, you go ahead and give an Ari Miklat. And then you're going to go ahead and then after another 1/8, you're going to go ahead and give it. You have to figure out how they would do it, but you should do it in a way that it shouldn't be.
They're going to need more cities.
It's not fair that why should the guys in the middle have a smaller distance to travel than the guys at the border? The border might, the cities, the guy between the border and the first city, they might have to travel 25 miles. And between the city number 1 and city number 2, the guy only has to travel half that distance. So you should have broken up the Israel in a way that everybody should have to travel the same equidistant. So the Gemara answers, the answer for that is, that's too much question. Why is the middle the Mekarvi, that they're close? Because who was in the middle? That middle city that we needed the city of Shechem, and nearby, there were more murderers than other places. Because there were more murderers, we needed to address that to make it easier for them to get to the place of Miklat, to the city of Miklat. And because we needed to get them to the city of Miklat, so therefore we gave them a shorter distance. The people from the borders, those cities by the borders, from the border, we gave them 25 miles because there weren't so many murderers over there. But in the middle, where we had the Ari Miklat in the middle, that middle city, because we needed short space for the guy to run between city number 1 and city number 2 and city number 2 and city number 3, because in those areas there was more murderers, and therefore it was set up in that way. And we'll continue tomorrow more about this phenomenon. Have a great day, everybody. Welcome, Mr. Batesh, back. Have a great day, everybody.
Thank you, Rabbi. Bye.
Rabbi, thank you. Have a great day.
Have a great day. You too.